CV, please. Dr. Kalep Gonzalez Blanco. He's an engineer and computing systems from the Polytechnical Institute. He has a master's degree in AI. He has a PhD in cryptography. He has different specialized courses in finance, business, and coordination of production for Aztec Tech Mexico. He has been coordinator of computing systems for local films. He has been the chairman of NTV Mexico. He also is an expert in Circuit Bancom Global. He's an advisor for the board of directors, Make It Smart Investments in Panama. As well, he's been a national secretary of science and technology for the National Indigenous government. He has recognized by UNAMA for his humanitarian career in New York, and he's an ambassador before the United Nations for the Indigenous National Government. It's a great honor to welcome Dr. Kalep. The floor is yours. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for your invitation. First and foremost, the next conference was prepared for a whole year after a deep analysis. I want to thank Mauricio for his invitation and to all members. Let me share my screen. So that, okay. I will start with the easiest part. What's crypto economy and what's the future of finances in the digital area? What we have been living, we saw this last year. I will recap. What we see is a evolutive natural process of financial systems, but linked to what? To finances were immersed in in a process that didn't have a real evolution, not in terms of operating processes, not in terms of the instruments that we use to generate the different instruments. We are using the Bitcoin's codification. So all of a sudden, we saw the Bitcoin in 2019, but the Bitcoins are older, from the 80s, when we have the first participation. But they start with communication codes that they were used for American submarines. And this is where they started in terms of the systems with Bitcoins. And this allowed us to evolve at giant steps. We went from a Bitcoin that was a fiction science, and then this came from a 0.0008 cents per dollar, and it seems that did not have an intrinsic value associated. And we have seen the news in the last 10 years in which constantly they say that they were of a low value. And we forgot the main value. The economy is based in trust. And when all the value is put up behind a digital asset, in this case, a digital asset based on a fractionary reserve, only it was inside an environment regulated and controlled by the bank in a corporation or in the government. But what happens when we have a new stakeholder, which is the code? And what's the code? Is a auto-manageable entity when you turn on the computer, you have to hit a button, and the computer is on, and the same thing for a browser. If I hit in one direction, it will lead me to one place or to another place. This is not regulated. This is a commercial standard that is evolving with the demand. This indicates a process by which the code becomes a self-manager of itself. And this self-manager that is based on a set of rules allows us to interact. So this made us discover new systems like reality recreation or emulation that are particularly interesting, that we can recreate virtual environments. And those recreations are the key of success of the digital economy, because we can recreate and improve and to go at a higher speed when it comes to the processes managed by a code. Now this is where the legislation comes in. The legislation runs after the code, not vice versa, because legislation would always try to catch innovation to put it at the forefront. So there's always new innovation. In other words, we have to run after the innovation, and that is why we do not have rules to control innovation. Otherwise, we will limit it. We have a dichotomy. So we will speculate if certain technology will be developed under certain commercial terms. What is curious about Bitcoins is that the fact of the encrypted information, like with an algorithm, the Bitcoin exponential at the 9th potency, so an encryptation based on SHA-256, which is based on the encryptation we have in Mexico, protects the unit against any cyber attack. And it's really interesting. It is like cash. If you have the wallet, you're the owner. So this is a summary of what the digital asset functions. The digital asset is safeguarded by mathematics, and it protects it so it cannot be duplicated or copied like any other digital file. And also the economy is fully based on energy. What is this about? The first thing that we need to see is to have the support after the lethargic state. We need energy. We need an input, and this input is obtained through the food we consume, and with packaged energy, that is money. It's a unit that represents value, and this unit is obtained with energy exchange, which is our job that we provided with our effort. So this is very simple, and within the energy exchange process, we know that Bitcoins are based in energy and mathematics. Being based in energy and mathematics, it becomes a capital representation unit. If we understand this in a simple way, and based on what we said last year and the pandemic, we have a great advantage regarding that there's a predisposition of home office or the use of these tools to make some processes more expedite and efficient without the transportation of a great quantity of individuals and reducing pollution and therefore the carbon footprint. We are prone to use this technology in a better way. That before we were reluctant. This is around the world. When this happened, Bitcoins had a great opportunity and a great momentum like never before. The BFI is a term. DeFi, it is a financial term that the finances are decentralized. We have banks that are not in one place. They are in a server, and then they're running in a blockchain. The bitcoins became a business of billions of dollars, causing a wave of processes that are forcing the evolution of the financial systems in the world. We have clear rules in the last 50 days, but a legislation framework linked to this 50-year process. Now we need to evolve it. The problem is that this self-management of the evolution does not go hand in hand with the needs we have. All those needs are not for the markets in the use of bitcoins, but the reality of the interaction, social, economic, cultural, military, geopolitical, and production relationship. The bitcoins were created in 1980, where some events happened. The most important is the first cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. Since the meteoric ascent in the last 12 years, the financial services pro Bitcoin have shown reluctance. The centralized finances DeFi is a term that refers to a type of financial system that is ruled by information code. It is a self-manageable unit. That is, the intelligent control obtains rules, information, objectives. It tally the information, and it self-pay, self-send, generate sanctions or not, and it's self-regulated. And this is where we have another phase, which is the artificial intelligence. It turns out that since it is no longer centralized in only one country, now this is performed in many places, in different languages, in different frameworks. So what happens that we go through the nominal and regular basis where the agreements are based. There are many discussions internationally what would be the frameworks, legal frameworks, because everybody wants to manage it separately, but this is not the case because this is an evolution process. So let us remember that as such, this evolution process that has to be linked to all the change that we will have with the interaction of a legal framework that will have to be standardized, will end up by having a centralized entity that will be linked to groups of nodes, let's say international intelligence. Those oracles will allow to feed information to smart agreements, so it would be truthful and decisions will be made. We use this in our emails, in our financial systems, in many banks. Google is using it, so we will be able to interact and send information. I think if we do it this way, I will not share my screen. So what is happening, which is really interesting and is going to be pivotal, is once each and every one of our financial processes are linked to the information fed by oracles, to these contracts will be all of a sudden more efficient, more faster, and this will allow us that we will be able to self-regulate in a better way the productive chains. This is where the bitcoins come in. We will be talking about specific marks linked to leverage units that are linked to the so-called clearing house that are linked to FX. Well, surprisingly, this process is happening around the world. Next table. Well, if we see this decentralized finance, DeFi is a general word to describe multiple application and public projects of blockchain. The DeFi refers to financial apps created in blockchain technology by using a code that is self-managed and executed against specific variables fed by digital oracles. DeFi is a term that refers to a financial system that is ruled by the information code that base its operations in a smart agreement. And this is where we talk about the backbone. When these smart contracts self-generate or generate history, allow us to have better and more information of financial statement, system of cost collection. We can see what's the real value of actual value of a company, of a business. We define the value of digital asset. We can properly know with Internet of Things when we need an asset. So this is very important because it will allow us not to evolve the systems that we already have, but to make them more efficient. In the short run, this will cause that little by little we will learn how to manage better centers of distribution based on the places where we really need the assets by reducing the cost of inventory and reducing the carbon footprint. This is going to be key in the new international legal frameworks based on the taxes that should be paid because of the generation of the carbon footprints that generate costs. The capture of carbon has to be taken into account because global warming are affecting the weather in all aspects of the economy, generate costs in the reconstruction because of the damage done. And we will live this in the following 50 years, and we are paying the price of the industrialization in our economies, and this is something that will resume. Unfortunately, this won't stop because this is a global process that is being affecting us, and it is not an option to have a Bitcoin. What are the benefits of the smart contracts? Most of them include the programming languages like Turing Complete. That is a protocol to use a code. The contract is real, not only is self-managed, but is self-validated according to blockchain. If the contract is not registered, is not executed, and is reported, and this avoids to generate frauds. Some stakeholders are applied. The capacity of blockchain to use smart contracts had made possible to use financial apps because the finance apps migrated to digital economy are less susceptible to generate the natural vices of the regular economy, such as the excess of printing of coins and based on economic policy that affect the economy of everybody. If we have clear rules in this generation, we need to have a consensus that would avoid potential bubbles of crisis that we are living through constantly because we have certain policies derived of certain stakeholders when considering that their needs are more important than others, so they impose certain actions that have to be reviewed. However, if we work this together by exchanging information, we could, with a lower cost via the trade, we can perform more efficient activities. And we didn't have this because we did not have the capability of intercommunication and make them for the information compatible.
So now this is really interesting because it indicates how it started. DeFi started as a financial system diversion, and this is a natural response to simplify processes. You don't need to know how it works. It does work, of course, at system and legal level. And logically, we see that a participant has some rules. Examples like this are going to be the additional in analog telephony. We sent a letter. It was sent, and then by the post office it was sent. And they wanted to forbid IP telephone. It was easier by land, cell phones. Most of us have WhatsApp, affecting a commercial sector that needed to evolve. Analog photography passed to digital photography. Now it's a normal process. It was an evolution. We need to understand this. Everything evolves. And then cryptocurrency. Now we are evolving to systems based in traditional bank to DeFi. And this is not going to stop. It's going to speed up, on the contrary. Why shall not be possible to continue with the traditional system? This is quite interesting. The cost is too high. It is too high that a group of individuals controls the economy, or just a few countries. It is better to have consensus, and we can see this with international policies, and we'll come to this. This is something which is not only happening, but it will evolve. Which are the financial services in DeFi? DEX, exchange decentralized. In the past, we needed to have capital to participate in the stock market. Then an account was opened, and then they had the capital, and then you had profits. Digital assets are the current means. We can also talk about the fiscal part, but we will see some other factors here to self-regulate taxes to the state, which in many cases were exaggerated by over-legislation. We also have DEX, exchange decentralized, also factoring, leveraging. That means that if I have assets, they could be used as leverage for my projects and self-generate funding. This could be like a bank, but that's complicated. I could generate the document in the application, but you need to observe law, of course, and a fund for a small project. You can do that. Virtual assets generation. This is really important, and I'm going to give you an example for this, which is the most famous painting that we have nowadays, the artwork, which is the most famous. Mona Lisa, because it was stolen. But why this is so valuable? Thousands of people are willing to spend thousands of euros in tickets, trips, food, transportation, cameras to go in front of this art piece and stay there for 15 minutes, making a huge income for the French government and also memorabilia. No one knows the real value of that art piece, but now there's a possibility to generate new artworks. The people decide to bid for opening a new account for content creators, and this could be linked to music, and we can talk about also about speeches given by experts devoted to some art. Someone could do that. That sounds weird, I know, but not more than some people preserving some Campbell can that was released in the 50s. And it does exist, by the way. And I think that they are really expensive as memorabilia. So this says how some processes that were linked in a dark manner to justify just an elite saying what's worth and what's not. Now this can be used as an alternative. The case of fans with different pieces of art, they can participate in the economy generating this value. And this will make to evolve identification systems, digitalizing records. This is important. Now we have digital identity, like a code, an email. All of us have codes for technology, and you can identify with the system. Now we will be able to digitalize birth certificates, also facial IDs, just like birth certificates, college diplomas, education, qualifications, legal records, health records, finance records, savings, also army records. For example, for retirement in the case of army forces, bank accounts, property deeds, or any other finance banks, patent and brand copyrights. The fact is that this is not going to be managed by the government. A person will safeguard this information and they will share at their will. Everything is protected by blockchain. Through this, we are giving some equality for this identity control. This is an evolution process that was necessary to have. We are over centralized and we do not know who has our information, and we have issues of security. The state needs to identify, I know, but up to which level we have the interest of particularity against the public. In the next years, we will see this as a result of the processes that we are experiencing. This is not going to stop. How do we know that this is not only a fashion, but that the economy will go towards this direction? This is part of a process that started in 2020. We can see indicators with bitcoins. Why China is forbidding cryptocurrency, they don't like competition. And there's a lot of problem. I don't think that this will work. Economy is using this trend. The more you want to control, the participants will use it more. And this, under the code regulation, it flourishes. As it is already in the cloud, you cannot remove it. It was impossible. And we will see that they are evolving. Digital dollar. It is now in legal processes. Digital euros as well. We have some contracts to generate these indicators. Also, the digital pound, it is in progress in England, and we will see it soon. It is not that any nation sought to adopt Bitcoin. That would be really incredible. Well, it is happening with El Salvador, Cuba, Brazil, and there's a discussion in Panama. So what's happening? We're seeing these digital integration processes not to depend on central banks. This will cause adjustments and changes. What's going to happen with this change? And here we will start seeing changes. For some people, they are not popular. These processes won't stop. And we can see evidence here. Taxes will also evolve, creating more dynamic in a globalized economy. We need to understand, however, that these changes have a pace that we're experiencing right now. The pandemic speeded up this process in a natural manner. In the past, people were not doing online businesses, providing their information to blockchain. The first ones were pioneers, but we see more people doing it. So this will evolve. And here we have something that people see as an Ethereum thing. One of the modern, biggest, and less understood economic activities, video games. At global level is a huge industry, billions of dollars, millions of participants. This is nihilism, but you know that it's happening. We have bet systems, people that have a full life in virtual lives. And we will see that a lot of these processes will be rewarded by assets with these online activities generating digital activities through clearing houses. And this is happening. And you will see that many games are turning out, and this industry will be valued in 150 billion US dollars. And this is only the iceberg tip. After this, we have emulation systems, virtual tourism, and then social network. So we're going to have trips to the moon, to Mars, to the space, and this leads to the following. and allow me to go beyond the economic part. So where are we going to in this change process? Why all this is happening? Everything is related to ecology and consumption. Augmented reality will allow us to use digital means. This means that Facebook is not going to be the same. We will go to the street with glasses. Now with these glasses, I will see a building and they will let me know what I can buy there and how to change cryptocurrency. And this will be in 3 years. There are millionaire investments. And there will be also the need of creating new employment sources related to nihilism. And we will also see this in video games. It is not only because they are fun, but factories will be automated. So insurance is going to be linked to a robot. And the company will put this robot to work. I have a percentage, and then I'm going to invest it, and I will get profits. And then you have the full economic circle. But inputs, distribution, and production locations will be different. Transportation is also going to change due to automation. New opportunities in engineering, development of new materials that are lighter. This is particularly important, and I cannot stop highlighting this. We have heard about, in the last 3 years, probably 2, we have seen the space race with private companies. China has missions in Mars, in the moon, a small base. We have the energy palace in the moon. We have Elon Musk and Bezos fighting who's going to be there first. And for those that saw Star Trek, you can go in one of Bezos' ships to the space. Of course, they're going to do that. And we are seeing the starting of space tourism. And this is really simple. 20 or 15 years ago, it was discovered that after Mars, at the asteroid belt, there is a higher quantity of minerals. We're talking about gold, mercury, rare metals, silver. All this wealth is not ignored by countries or companies, but in order to be able to process it, it has to be processed in the moon. The true reason that we are looking for water privatization, if we see the Charter of the United Nations, water cannot be private. We need it to survive. So what are we going to see now? They will look to convert it in a commodity. So when it is produced in the moon, it can be really expensive for all the missions. When we start having people there and they start burning, they cannot come back to the earth because their bodies will not be adapted to this reality. I know this looks simple, but 10 years ago, if we have talked about these changes, to see all the natural disasters, weather events, global pandemic, forcing us to live what we are experiencing, we wouldn't have believed it. The world is changing fast, and we need to recall this. The economists know what's going to happen in the next 50 years. We also want to resolve pollution. That's why we're going to go after digital assets, and this is becoming a standard. And this is something that will continue. I'm going to show next slide just to finish. Next, changes. After these changes will force us to have a more ecological awareness. That was what I was saying, and this will cover all the sectors and all the assets, restaurants, construction, tourism, and I forgot to mention many of them. And we can see an example in the process for the popular peoples of China by Australia. Australia was seeing a lot of assets like rare earth, and then China fought for that. Then Australia withdrew, went to a more global market, and now they are working in the generation of electrical cars in a wider market, causing the creation of a group of companies, a holding of 170 billion US dollars in the next years. That's the trend. Our species we also face new issues in all the areas and sciences. We need to evolve and create more awareness. This is important to recall a new reality, managing resources and new production processes. We will have geopolitical conflicts. We are already seeing this in China, and readaptation of different powers and regions that are growing, like India. As a result of the need of nations to control, that was what I was saying. States are seeking to control through legislation for digital assets. This will not work, and there will be more pressure. The evolution of systems will be regulated by artificial intelligence. We cannot stop this process. Several sectors have spoken about this. We knew this moment was coming, as it was warned. This is part of our evolution process as species. We need to understand that our approach to nature was wrong. An example is here. The human beings as such is not mature. We have 50,000 years in the planet, and compared to dinosaurs, we are too young. We believe that we have dominated nature, and this is curious when we think about species dependency. If I withdraw a species in the planet, we would disappear overnight. An example, vegetables. If I disappear plants, we die. But if we disappear, plants will not have any problem. We need to evolve, and this will have to happen. This is not a question. And also the limits of tourism will force countries to develop new tax systems. There will be new tax systems. You will see this. This is another evolution stage. This will happen in the next 30 years. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is something that we cannot stop anymore. We are experiencing this change period that was what the pandemic brought: over consumption, hurting nature. There will be a lot of wealth, yes, but everything will have to be readapted, and we are undergoing this process. And the world is working to see these integration processes. We need to look for ways on how to make efficient our resource consumption and avoid geopolitical conflicts. This could be the immediate history for the years 2000 on. I hope we don't have more conflicts, but it's very interesting to live in this era. Is there any question? Well, this is a reflection need. All presentations have been really interesting along this Congress. And with this last reflection, I would like to express something. When Mauricio Mubarak shared the topic of Hugo Lopez Araiza, he recommended 2 videos. One of them is called When the Earth is Left Without Humans. Wishfully, you can share that link because it's really interesting so we can see that. It really makes us think that we need to become aware and evolve. We just have 2 minutes for a question or any comment. Otherwise, we're going to write your question in the chat or through any of our digital network in Facebook or YouTube, UC&CS America and UC&CS Global in English. Just a question. Dear Kalep, that big reset, is that true or just conspiration? It is exactly what we're talking about. That's right. That's right. Yes. So then it's true. Yes. But there are many myths around this. Let's remind that in this reality, or what we believe as a reality, is what we're really experiencing.